Hello YouTubers and welcome to another episode here on the channel. As you can tell from the title, we're talking about erg tips and not necessarily the general ones that you might hear about erg technique. But first things first, we have to get into the club and get on the erg, and then we'll have a little bit of a chat about the tips. Oh, you.
Maybe I'm a bird following the seasons. This is what I've learned. I'm different for a reason. Kept the engine on, never stay too long. I'm alright, I don't mind being restless. Something in your eye made me stay all night. I can see you are different too. Love me like a stranger, like a melody flowing wild and free. Love me like a stranger, let it be unique. Run away with me. Love me like a, love me like a, love me like a stranger.
And we've made it into the crew room post erg. Quite a long one on a Saturday morning, getting almost a sort of interval workout in. Edward was not on the erg, as you could tell. Where were you, Edward, today?
How can you tell I wasn't on the
Because the video was of me and Ollie.
I was on my bicycle, on mostly my own. Yeah, getting absolutely brushed by the boys.
Lad. So on the bike, it's quite makes things a bit more mentally stimulating rather than just being on the erg.
Yeah, I like, mix it up, keep the body guessing.
And what have you got on your phone there, Ed?
Just playing a little game.
What's the game, Ed?
It's the Harry Potter version of Pokemon Go. Very good. Brilliant.
Is anyone else playing that game, Ed?
Me and my brother
And where's your brother?
in London.
So a very popular game.
Yeah. There must be other people playing it.
Just you and your brother keeping it live.
Yeah.
But now, after the sessions, time to fuel up, especially with the longer ones, and then talking about not erg technique tips, but tips for the ergo. Oh, yeah. And we've made it outside of the club for another day. A lovely short one on a Saturday, with a lovely day ahead of us, a lovely weekend to relax, chill out, and get ready for the next week of training. And next week we actually have a 2K. But rowing machine tips that aren't necessarily technique. There are so many things you can do on the erg to make it that bit more interesting and that bit more manageable and make it actually sometimes enjoyable. One of the big things today that we did was rowing together with your friends, which makes a huge difference when you're there on the rowing machine with the people that you enjoy spending time with, or even just a random person next to you and you're rating the same. That makes a big difference. Just with rating the same, you can look across and use their split as motivation, and there's a bunch of different things you can do with like just a little bit of a mental break there, having someone there, even when you're having a break, to have a little chat too. But there's plenty more tips. Right now we're gonna get to some more relaxing and then talking about couple more tips when we get back to the house. Oh yeah! And we've made it back to the house and we're talking about erg tips as I put the camera down. But not just erg tips for the technique, because I'm going to try and make more videos relating to rowing technique and rowing machine technique. But as I said just a second ago about rowing with your friends, giving yourself that little bit more motivation, there are 2 more tips that I think are absolutely massive when on the rowing machine, outside of the importance of technique. So tip number 2, we have heat. Since the rowing machine is such a full body exercise, heat plays a huge factor in the difficulty of the erg. I've done erg workouts exactly the same. So say I've done a steady state session, a session where the distance is the same and the intensity is supposed to stay the same and the split is the same. But on day 1, where it is 25 degrees in the gym, it is quite a bit difficult. But on day 2, when it's only 10-15 degrees in the gym, it makes it so much easier. Obviously, the hotter it gets on any exercise, the harder it gets. But since rowing and being on the rowing machine is such a full body exercise, it means that it just makes it that little bit more difficult, or even that lot more difficult. So that's point 2. Make sure you're able at least to get a fan on yourself when it's really hot, but obviously winter is coming, so it will be getting cooler and easier to have those lower temperatures as we have some boats going past. But right now, since we're just still on the tail end of summer, it's quite difficult for us to keep those temperatures down. So doing everything you can, making sure you're super hydrated. If there's a fan around, getting a fan going right on yourself. But at Leander Club, sometimes there's 20, 25 of us on the erg at the same time, and it's just almost a matter of getting on with it. But then you start going into things like making sure you're still staying in the same training zones, even if it means slowing down because of the heat making it that much harder. And that's something I've made a few videos about, of staying in the same training zones, but that's another topic. And tip number 3 is all about fuel. So I know a lot of people sit on the erg and do a huge amounts of distance. I see a lot of people go on there and do 16Ks, 20Ks, 30Ks, 40Ks constantly, all the way through without getting off the erg. Well, fueling up during the erg can make a massive difference, not just for fuel as in sustenance and energy, but hydration as well. So you could make a isotonic drink with squash, salt, sugar and some water, or you could have a different type of shake, a protein shake or an energy shake. There's plenty of different brands out there to fuel yourself up during a session. Just a couple of gulps every so often to keep yourself fueled and actually help prevent that drift of the heart rate, of the intensity on the same split as you go through an erg. And this can also tie into when it's very hot. If you can stop for a little bit of hydration, it can help reduce the intensity a little bit by staying more hydrated as you're sweating more and more. But when do you actually stop to fuel up during a session? Obviously it's not every 2 minutes or not every 5. Depending on the session itself, generally anything under an hour you can sort of do straight through. But once it goes above an hour, then you can sort of split it in half. Maybe you split it into thirds and do 2/3, have a break and do another third. If you stop for a quick enough time, maybe about a minute, then it doesn't actually really affect the overall gains on the aerobic system for the workout. So you don't lose any gains and you get fueled up. So it's not really losing anything and it's gaining fuel. So that's a big tip that I really want to make sure people are paying attention to. So when I'm doing my 20Ks from now on, and when even today with the workouts we were doing, it's a 90-minute overall workout, 60 minutes at first, take a little bit of some isotonic drinks that I've made up, squash, salt, sugar, etc. And then it just feels that much better going on to the rest of the half hour left of the workout. And it's just a little bit of a break in the middle, just to take a little bit of a drink, and it makes a massive difference. So try it out, let me know in the comments below. But that is 3 big tips outside of the technique for the rowing machine, and I'm sure there are loads more. Let me know in the comments below if you have any tips, and I'll probably make another couple of videos just like this one for more tips on the rowing machine. Maybe do some tips for on the water as well. But that will be it for today's video, Yam Squad. Hopefully you enjoyed it. A little bit different, talking about rowing, yes, but a bit different look at rowing on the rowing machine. And as always, Yam Squad, remember to subscribe if you haven't already, hit that like button, and I will see you next week in the next video.